5 signs the universe is guiding you. Buddhist perspective on destiny. In moments of uncertainty, when life seems to weave a pattern beyond our understanding, many people pause and wonder if something greater is at play. Is there a purpose to what unfolds? Are the challenges, coincidences, and delays in our path part of a deeper design? Buddhism offers a profound perspective on this, one that blends the mystery of destiny with the clarity of awareness. In the Buddhist view, the universe does not guide us through arbitrary fate, but through the harmony of causes and conditions, through karmic resonance and the alignment of mind and reality. To see the signs that the universe is guiding you, you must first quiet the noise of desire and fear that clouds perception. The teachings of the Buddha remind us that truth is not hidden by complexity, but by distraction. When the mind becomes still, the signs become visible. What we call signs from the universe are in fact reflections of our own state of consciousness, messages written in the language of synchronicity, impermanence, and cause and effect. This text will explore 5 profound signs, seen through the Buddhist lens, that reveal how the universe guides those who walk with awareness. These signs are not miracles to wait for, but awakenings to recognize. When we begin to see them, we discover that destiny is not something that happens to us, but something we awaken to within ourselves. Let us begin with the first sign. The stillness that precedes change, the quiet signal that the universe is preparing your path for transformation. The stillness before change. When the universe pauses your life to redirect you, there are moments when everything seems to stop. Plans collapse, opportunities vanish, relationships fade, and progress turns to silence. To the untrained mind, this feels like failure or abandonment. But in the Buddhist view, such stillness is often the compassionate pause of the universe, a redirection toward what truly aligns with the Dharma, the law of natural truth. The Buddha taught that all phenomena arise and pass according to dependent origination, pratyasamutpada. Nothing occurs by chance, and nothing exists in isolation. Every still moment in your life is connected to countless unseen conditions forming in the background. When your outer world slows down, your inner world is being asked to awaken. This is the universe whispering, "Stop moving long enough to see the path clearly." In meditation, monks are trained to enter stillness not as a void, but as a source of clarity. The same applies to your life. When the universe halts your movement, it is often arranging causes that will bloom later, just as the seed lies dormant before breaking open. Many people resist this stillness because modern life glorifies motion, achievement, and productivity. Yet the Buddhist path emphasizes right effort, not constant effort. There is a difference between striving blindly and moving in harmony with reality. If you are experiencing a period where nothing seems to advance, see it not as punishment, but preparation. This is your training in patience, kshanti, one of the 6 perfections, paramitas. Patience is not passive waiting, it is active acceptance. It is the strength to trust that every delay holds wisdom. The universe does not waste time, it refines timing. When karma ripens, the moment arrives effortlessly. The door that once resisted opens on its own, and the people, opportunities, and circumstances align like stars in a night sky. The stillness before that moment is the universe's way of aligning energy. But only those who cultivate mindfulness can perceive this process instead of reacting against it. This is why Buddhist teachers often say, "When nothing happens, everything is happening. Silence is not the absence of life, but the womb of creation. In that silence, listen closely. Your intuition grows louder, your fears grow quieter, and your next step becomes clear." When the universe pauses your movement, it is asking you to deepen your seeing. Your destiny is not being denied, it is being rewritten in alignment with your higher awareness. Trust the stillness, for it is the first sign that the universe is guiding you home. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so that wisdom like this continues to find you on your path of awakening. Synchronicities and meaningful coincidences. When the universe speaks in subtle patterns. There are moments in life when things seem to line up in ways that logic alone cannot explain. You think of a friend you haven't spoken to in years, and they suddenly call. You take a wrong turn and discover an opportunity that changes your life. You pick up a random book, open it to a page, and find a sentence that answers a question you've silently carried in your heart. These moments, often called coincidences, are in fact not coincidences at all. They are the gentle language of the universe, guiding those who are awake enough to listen. In the Buddhist perspective, synchronicity is not magic. It is the natural unfolding of interdependence. Everything is connected. No action, no thought, no breath exists in isolation. Every movement of the mind sends out ripples into the infinite web of causes and conditions that make up the universe. When your inner state becomes aligned with truth, the outer world reflects that alignment through patterns of meaning. The Buddha described this dynamic as the harmony of cause and effect, the law of karma, which means action, but also implies resonance. Karma is not a system of reward or punishment. It is the vibrational echo of consciousness manifesting through experience. When your heart and intentions are pure, reality rearranges itself to mirror that purity. Synchronicities arise when your energy aligns with the larger flow of the cosmos. The rational mind often dismisses these experiences as chance because it cannot measure the unseen dimensions of connection. But the awakened mind, trained in mindfulness and compassion, begins to see that everything communicates, not through words, but through the silent dance of form and emptiness. A leaf falling at your feet at the right moment, a phrase overheard in a cafe, a sudden shift in weather that mirrors your mood, all of these are the universe's subtle affirmations. In meditation, one learns to perceive the rhythm of existence without interference. This rhythm is not chaotic, it has its own intelligence. The entire Buddhist understanding of the cosmos rests on the idea that consciousness is the foundation of all things. When you cultivate awareness, your life becomes an instrument tuned to that cosmic consciousness. And just as a musician recognizes harmony when notes align, you begin to recognize synchronicity when your thoughts, feelings, and actions align with the Dharma. This awareness is not superstition, it is sensitivity. In the West, Carl Jung called it synchronicity, a meaningful coincidence with no apparent causal connection. But in the Buddhist context, it is deeper than psychological projection. It is the experience of dependent arising, manifesting in real time, the interwoven dance of mind and matter that reveals how consciousness shapes reality. Consider this. The moment you decide to walk a path of integrity, truth, and compassion, life starts testing that decision. Challenges appear that mirror your doubts. Opportunities arise that confirm your courage. Every situation you encounter becomes a reflection of your internal journey. Synchronicities intensify because your awareness sharpens. You start noticing the patterns that were always there, but hidden behind distraction. It is not that the universe suddenly begins guiding you. It has always been guiding you. The difference is that now you are finally awake enough to see its signals. A great Buddhist master once said, "The bird sings not because it has an answer, but because it has a song." Likewise, the universe communicates not to prove its existence, but because it is its nature to express truth through every sound, every face, every event. The song of the universe is the vibration of interconnectedness, And synchronicity is how that song reaches your awareness. Sometimes these signs appear during crisis, when you are at the crossroads of fear and faith. You may be struggling with loss, doubt, or confusion, and suddenly you encounter something that feels like a whisper from the invisible. It could be a dream that brings peace, a stranger's kindness that feels divine, or a sudden insight that cuts through months of uncertainty. These are not random occurrences. They are reminders that you are not separate from the greater flow of life. The very energy that spins galaxies also breathes through your lungs. When you begin to see life through this lens, the ordinary becomes extraordinary. You understand that every person you meet is part of your spiritual curriculum. Every delay has timing woven into its fabric. Every disappointment is an invitation to release attachment and deepen wisdom. Synchronicity teaches humility because it reveals that you are part of something vast, and it teaches empowerment because it shows that your consciousness participates in shaping that vastness. In Buddhist practice, this awareness is cultivated through mindfulness, the ability to see things as they are, not as you wish them to be. When mindfulness ripens, perception itself transforms. You begin to see the hidden order behind what once seemed like chaos. The sutras describe this as seeing with the eye of Dharma. To see with the eye of Dharma is to understand that nothing in your life is separate from awakening. Every experience, whether pleasant or painful, is a doorway. Synchronicity is the universe gently nudging you toward the right door. But how do you differentiate between a true sign and a projection of your desires? This is a question even sincere seekers face. Buddhism teaches discernment through equanimity. When the mind is calm and free of craving, the signs you perceive are pure. When the mind is clouded by attachment or fear, interpretation becomes distorted. Thus, before assuming that a coincidence is a message, return to stillness. Ask yourself, does this sign lead me toward compassion, wisdom, and clarity? If it does, it aligns with the Dharma. If it feeds ego or confusion, it is merely noise. Another profound truth is that the more you trust this communication, the stronger it becomes. The universe, like a compassionate teacher, adjusts its methods to your level of awareness. In the beginning, the signs may be subtle, a phrase, a feather, a dream. As your mindfulness deepens, synchronicities can become undeniable. You might meet exactly the person who holds the key to your next step, or find yourself in the right place at the precise moment. This is not fantasy, it is resonance. Think of it as tuning into a frequency. When you are trapped in anxiety, you broadcast chaos and attract confusion. When you rest in mindfulness, you broadcast harmony and attract clarity. The universe does not punish or reward. It simply mirrors. Every synchronicity is feedback, a cosmic mirror showing you the state of your inner world. In Tibetan teachings, there is the concept of tendril, or auspicious coincidence. It refers to the perfect convergence of causes that allow enlightenment to unfold. The Buddha's birth, his encounter with suffering, his meditation under the Bodhi tree, all were tendril, the intersection of destiny and readiness. Likewise, in your life, the universe arranges circumstances when your heart is ready to see. If you force timing, you interfere with natural flow. If you trust timing, you walk hand in hand with the unfolding of karma. To cultivate this trust, the practice of surrender is essential. Surrender, in the Buddhist sense, does not mean giving up control out of helplessness. It means releasing the illusion that control was ever yours. The more you try to manipulate outcomes, the less you can perceive synchronicity. But the moment you soften into awareness, the world begins to reflect your inner peace. You start noticing the right teacher arriving when the student is ready, the right words appearing when confusion peaks, the right endings preparing the ground for beginnings. Everything in nature operates by this law of timing. The sun rises not a second too early, not a breath too late. The tree does not rush to bloom before winter passes. Human beings, however, have forgotten this rhythm. We chase goals, fear delays, and call natural pauses failures. Yet every enlightened master reminds us, patience and observation reveal the hand of the universe. If you can observe long enough without judgment, meaning begins to emerge from the apparent randomness of life. Sometimes the greatest synchronicities come through loss, the relationship that ends, the job that collapses, the dream that fades. These may seem like tragedies, but they clear space for your real purpose to unfold. The Buddha himself experienced this pattern. Had he not left the palace and confronted suffering, he would never have awakened. The loss of comfort was the universe's way of aligning him with truth. So too, your heartbreaks and disappointments may be synchronistic calls to transformation. When seen through awakened eyes, the universe becomes a living sutra, a scripture written in experiences rather than words. Every event, from sunrise to sorrow, teaches impermanence, compassion, and interconnectedness. The more you live with awareness, the more the boundaries between inner and outer dissolve. The mind that seeks signs becomes the same mind that receives them. Life stops being a puzzle to solve and becomes a meditation to inhabit. Synchronicity also deepens gratitude. When you realize that existence itself conspires for your growth, you no longer take moments for granted. You start saying thank you, not just for blessings, but for lessons. The rain that delays your plans becomes a teacher in patience. The stranger's smile becomes a reminder of shared humanity. Gratitude amplifies synchronicity because it opens your perception. A closed heart misses messages, an open heart hears them everywhere. In Buddhism, gratitude is a form of wisdom. It dissolves the illusion of separation and awakens the understanding that every being contributes to your journey. When you walk with gratitude, even challenges feel sacred. And when you see life as sacred, synchronicity becomes your constant companion. You begin to realize that the universe has never stopped speaking. Only you had stopped listening. To live in awareness of synchronicity is to live in conversation with existence. Every breath, every encounter, every silence becomes a dialogue. You no longer demand explanations from life. You participate in its mystery. The Buddhist path is not about control, but intimacy. Intimacy with the truth that everything is connected, everything is meaningful, and everything is impermanent. If you wish to strengthen your relationship with the universe, begin with attention. Pay attention to what repeats in your life, the numbers, the symbols, the emotions, the lessons. Repetition is how the universe emphasizes what you have not yet integrated. When you finally learn the lesson, the pattern dissolves. In this way, destiny unfolds not as something written in stone, but as something rewritten through awakening. Ultimately, synchronicity teaches that destiny is not an external script. It is a living process of co-creation between consciousness and the cosmos. The more aware you become, the clearer your destiny becomes. Not because it changes, but because you finally see what was always there. The Buddha's final words were, "All compounded things are subject to decay. Strive on with diligence." Even this is a synchronistic reminder that every sign, every pattern points back to the same truth. Awareness is the path, and awakening is the destination. When you see a sign, trust it. When you miss one, forgive yourself. The universe is patient. It keeps guiding until you listen. Whether through stillness or synchronicity, its message remains constant. You are not lost, you are being led. If this message speaks to your journey, remember to subscribe to the channel so that teachings like this continue to accompany you on your path toward inner peace and awakening. The repetition of lessons and the cycles of karma. when the universe teaches until you understand. There is a certain rhythm to existence that repeats until it is understood. You may notice that the same types of people reappear in your life, that similar situations unfold, no matter how much you try to change your surroundings, or that certain emotions resurface even after years of spiritual effort. It is as if life itself keeps presenting the same exam under different disguises. Buddhism explains this phenomenon through the law of karma and the cyclical nature of samsara, the endless wheel of birth, death, and rebirth, not only in the literal sense of reincarnation, but also in the daily cycles of experience, thought, and behavior that trap the mind in repetition. These repetitions are not punishments. They are the compassionate lessons of the universe, the echo of causes you have set in motion, returning to you not as judgment, but as opportunity for understanding. Every thought, word, and action plants a seed in the soil of consciousness. Some seeds bloom quickly, others take years or even lifetimes to ripen. Karma is not fate, it is potential. When the conditions are right, the seed blossoms into experience, and the lesson contained within it reveals itself. The same patterns reappear because the underlying energy that created them has not yet been transformed. Until awareness meets that energy, the cycle continues. This is why the Buddha compared ignorance to sleep, for the dream repeats until the dreamer awakens. The repetition of lessons is one of the most profound ways the universe guides you. It is direct, unrelenting, and perfectly tailored to your growth. You cannot escape it by changing scenery or people. Because the source of repetition is internal, the external world simply mirrors the internal state. If you have not resolved anger, you will meet it again in different faces. If you have not learned compassion, you will encounter situations that demand it. If you have not accepted loss, life will continue to show you impermanence until you surrender to its truth. Karma, in this way, is both teacher and mirror. Imagine walking through a forest filled with echoes. Each time you shout, the forest repeats your voice. If you shout words of kindness, the echo returns softly. If you shout words of pain, the forest replies in sorrow. Karma works similarly. It is the echo of your own energy returning to help you hear yourself more clearly. When you finally recognize the sound as your own, the echo stops. The universe no longer needs to repeat the lesson because you have integrated its essence. Buddhism teaches that all suffering arises from ignorance, the inability to see things as they truly are. Karma, therefore, is not cruel. It is corrective. It brings you face to face with the illusions you still believe in. Each repetition is an invitation to look deeper. The same heartbreak that once shattered you may return, but this time you respond with understanding rather than resistance. That difference in consciousness is liberation. The outer event may appear identical, but the inner experience transforms completely. The Buddha often used the analogy of the wheel to describe the cycle of karma. The wheel spins continuously, propelled by desire, aversion, and ignorance, the three poisons of the mind. As long as these forces drive your thoughts and actions, you remain bound to repetition. But when you cultivate awareness, compassion, and wisdom, the wheel slows. Eventually, through insight, it stops. At that moment, samsara turns into nirvana, not a different place, but the same reality, seen without delusion. This understanding changes how we see adversity. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me again?" we begin to ask, "What am I meant to understand this time?" That simple shift in perception transforms suffering into practice. Every recurring challenge becomes a meditation. If you find yourself meeting the same type of disappointment, perhaps life is teaching you to release expectations. If you face betrayal repeatedly, perhaps the lesson is discernment. If you feel trapped by fear again and again, perhaps the universe is calling you to courage. In the Buddhist path, awareness is the medicine for repetition. Without awareness, you react unconsciously, recreating the same karma. With awareness, you respond consciously, breaking the pattern. This is why mindfulness is not merely a relaxation technique, but the foundation of liberation. When you are fully present, the momentum of the past loses its grip. You begin to see the exact moment when choice arises, the split second where old karma can be replaced by new wisdom. Consider the example of anger. Suppose you have spent your life reacting to provocation with resentment. Each reaction strengthens the habit. Each habit deepens the karmic groove. Then, one day, you become mindful in the midst of anger. You feel the heat rise in your chest, the tightening in your jaw, the story forming in your mind, and you simply observe it without acting. That single moment of observation interrupts the ancient chain of cause and effect. The wheel slows, the pattern weakens. Eventually, through consistent awareness, the energy of anger transforms into clarity. What once bound you now liberates you. This is how karma turns into dharma, how pain becomes wisdom. The same energy that fuels suffering when met with mindfulness becomes the energy of awakening. The Buddha's own journey was filled with repetition. Before his enlightenment, he encountered cycles of desire, doubt, and distraction. He saw them arise and pass again and again under the Bodhi tree, until, finally, he understood their nature. They were empty, impermanent, and not self. The moment he saw this truth directly, the cycle ended. That same truth applies to every human life. Modern life makes it easy to ignore the patterns. People move cities, change relationships, switch jobs, hoping to escape discomfort. But until understanding dawns, the same lessons appear in new forms. You might change the scenery but carry the same consciousness. The universe does not care about your location. It cares about your evolution. It will rearrange circumstances until you see the deeper principle behind them. That is why some of the most persistent challenges follow you, no matter where you go. They are not outside of you. They are within. The process of repetition also teaches humility. It reminds us that awakening is gradual. Even after glimpses of insight, old patterns can re-emerge, not to punish you, but to test the depth of your realization. The ego often believes it has conquered a lesson when it has merely memorized it. True wisdom must be embodied, not intellectualized. When life repeats a theme, it is asking you to live the truth, not just know it. A student who claims to have mastered compassion may find themselves face to face with cruelty, not to disprove their growth, but to refine it. From the Buddhist perspective, everything that happens to you is for your awakening. Even what seems meaningless holds meaning when seen through the lens of karma. The person who frustrates you may be a mirror of your own impatience. The recurring obstacle may be the universe's way of strengthening your perseverance. The pattern that exhausts you may be the final knot before liberation. When you stop resisting, you start learning. The cycle no longer feels like imprisonment, but education. Meditation helps you see this with extraordinary clarity. As you sit in stillness, the mind reveals its repetitive nature. Thoughts arise in loops, memories, worries, desires, judgments, endlessly circling. The longer you observe, the more you realize that external repetition begins as internal repetition. The mind keeps replaying what it has not resolved. The same thought dressed in different words, the same emotion wearing new faces, yet the essence remains. Meditation breaks this cycle by showing you the futility of chasing thoughts. When you stop feeding them, they fade. Likewise, when you stop feeding karmic reactions, the patterns dissolve. In the Mahayana tradition, this process is symbolized by the wheel of life, Bhava Chakra, a depiction of the cyclical nature of existence held by the jaws of impermanence. Around its edges are scenes of human experience, birth, aging, death, rebirth, all driven by ignorance and craving. But at the center of the wheel, the Buddha stands outside, pointing toward the moon of enlightenment. The message is clear. You do not have to destroy the wheel. You only have to step out of it. You step out through understanding. Understanding arises not from escaping experiences, but from fully entering them with awareness. Each time you embrace a lesson instead of fleeing from it, the karmic charge weakens. You reclaim energy once trapped in resistance. Over time, you begin to notice a change. The same events that once triggered pain now evoke calm. The same challenges that once felt unbearable now feel purposeful. This is the sign that the cycle is nearing completion. When you can remain peaceful within the storm, you have learned what the storm came to teach. It is also important to remember that karmic repetition occurs collectively as well as individually. Societies, nations, and civilizations repeat patterns of greed, violence, and ignorance until collective wisdom breaks through. This is why history seems to echo itself. Wars, revolutions, rises and falls. Humanity is learning through recurrence. The global mirror reflects the same truth as the personal one. Until awareness transforms intention, the cycle continues. The way you live, therefore, contributes to the healing of the world. Each time you break a personal pattern of anger, you weaken the collective karma of anger. Each moment of mindfulness ripples outward into the consciousness of all beings. The beauty of karma is that it is never fixed. No matter how many times you have repeated a mistake, awareness can rewrite it in an instant. The moment you truly understand a pattern, it loses power over you. It no longer needs to return. The lesson fulfilled becomes lightness in the soul. This is why Buddhism calls enlightenment the end of becoming. It is not the destruction of existence, but the completion of learning. When all lessons are integrated, there is nothing left to repeat. This process requires compassion for yourself. Many spiritual seekers become discouraged when they see patterns return, thinking they have failed. But repetition is not regression, it is review. The universe reviews the material before the final exam. Each recurrence is a chance to demonstrate mastery. So instead of judging yourself, thank life for the opportunity to deepen wisdom. The mind that accepts its own imperfection is already awakening. One of the most profound practices for breaking karmic cycles is forgiveness. Forgiveness releases the energy that binds you to repetition. As long as resentment lives in your heart, you remain connected to the source of pain, recreating it in new forms. Forgiveness does not mean condoning harm. It means releasing your identification with suffering. When you forgive, you stop participating in the karma of revenge and begin participating in the karma of peace. The Buddha said hatred is never overcome by hatred, but by love alone. This principle ends cycles more powerfully than any external act. Likewise, gratitude transforms karma. When you are grateful even for your difficulties, you transmute pain into power. Gratitude acknowledges the perfection of the universe's teaching methods. It says, I may not understand this lesson now, but I trust its necessity. That trust opens the heart to insight. Eventually, gratitude replaces resistance, and what once felt like punishment feels like grace. The same pattern that once caused suffering becomes the very evidence of divine guidance. In this way, destiny in the Buddhist sense is not a fixed script, but a flexible curriculum. The universe adapts to your consciousness moment by moment. It repeats what you ignore and releases what you understand. Every time you choose awareness over reaction, love over fear, patience over haste, the wheel turns a little slower. You move closer to freedom. As you walk this path, there will come a time when you recognize the beauty of repetition itself. you will see that every cycle was a spiral, never truly repeating, always ascending. The same lessons returned, but each time at a higher level of understanding. What you once met with pain, you now meet with peace. What you once feared, you now welcome as teacher. In that realization, karma becomes compassion, destiny becomes choice, and life becomes practice. The final truth is simple. The universe will never stop teaching you, but the form of teaching will evolve as you evolve. At first, it shouts through suffering, then it whispers through intuition. Finally, it speaks through silence. The ultimate sign of guidance is not external events, but internal clarity. When you no longer need repetition to learn, you live in harmony with the flow of existence. You act spontaneously with wisdom, and every moment becomes both teacher and expression of your awakening. So if you find yourself facing the same challenges again and again, pause and bow to them. They are not your enemies, they are your instructors. They appear not because you are unlucky, but because you are loved by a universe that refuses to let you remain asleep. Every repetition is a second chance to awaken, to choose differently, to see clearly. And the moment you do, the wheel slows. The lesson completes, and a new level of consciousness begins. If this reflection has deepened your understanding, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, so that these teachings can continue to accompany you as you walk the path of mindfulness, liberation, and awakening. Intuitive nudges and the voice of inner wisdom. When the universe speaks from within, there comes a point in every seeker's journey when the voice of the world begins to fade, and another voice, quieter yet infinitely more powerful, begins to rise from within. It does not argue or demand. It does not shout to be heard. It simply whispers, softly, patiently, insistently, guiding you toward choices that align with truth. This voice, which Buddhism recognizes as the wisdom of the awakened heart, is not separate from the universe itself. It is the universe speaking through you. It is the echo of ultimate consciousness resonating within the temple of your being. To hear it clearly is one of the surest signs that the universe is guiding you. Most people search for guidance outside themselves, in signs, books, teachers, or oracles, unaware that all outer guidance is merely a reflection of inner knowing. The Buddha never claimed to be a god or prophet. He was a mirror. His teachings point back to the source of all wisdom already present within each sentient being. He said, "Be a light unto yourself." This is not an invitation to arrogance, but to self-trust, the understanding that your own awareness, when purified of ignorance, reveals the same truth that enlightened every Buddha before you. Intuition, from the Buddhist perspective, is not mystical or irrational. It is direct perception, unclouded by conceptual thought. It arises from mindfulness, clarity, and the stillness of a mind no longer enslaved by desire or fear. When the surface of the lake is calm, it reflects the moon perfectly. When the mind is still, it reflects the Dharma. The whispers of intuition are the reflections of that moonlight, brief but luminous glimpses of the larger truth trying to reach you. Learning to recognize these intuitive nudges requires a certain refinement of consciousness. The ordinary mind is loud, filled with the noise of opinion, conditioning, and craving. It seeks certainty through logic and control. But intuition does not speak in linear arguments. It communicates through sensation, subtle feeling, resonance. It is the soft pulse that says yes or no before the intellect has time to interfere. To follow it is to walk the middle path, not the path of impulse or calculation, but of alignment. In Buddhist meditation, particularly in Vipassana, practitioners are trained to observe the arising of thoughts and feelings without clinging or aversion. Over time, this observation develops into discernment. the ability to distinguish between the restless voice of the ego and the quiet guidance of wisdom. The ego urges action out of fear, pride, or desire. The inner wisdom speaks with calm authority, asking nothing but trust. You can feel the difference in your body. The ego's voice creates tension. The intuitive voice brings peace, even when it directs you toward difficult choices. Many people ignore intuition because it often contradicts comfort. It may tell you to leave a relationship that feels familiar but not truthful, to quit a job that pays well but drains your soul, to forgive someone your mind insists deserves blame. The Buddha's path is the same. It always leads away from attachment, even when that path feels uncertain. The intuitive voice will never guide you towards selfishness or harm. It always aligns with compassion and wisdom. That is how you know it is the universe speaking, not the ego scheming. In the sutras, it is said that the mind has two aspects, the ordinary mind and the Buddha nature. The ordinary mind perceives through duality, me and you, success and failure, gain and loss. The Buddha nature perceives unity, everything arising and ceasing within the same vast field of awareness. Intuition flows from that second aspect. It is your Buddha nature reminding you of what you already know but have forgotten. When you follow it, you are not making a new discovery, you are remembering truth. This is why so many spiritual traditions speak of awakening as remembrance rather than attainment. The guidance you seek is already encoded in your consciousness. Each time you quiet your mind, you open the door to that memory. Meditation becomes not an escape from the world, but a tuning mechanism, aligning your awareness with the frequency of the universe. The more you practice, the clearer the transmission becomes. There is a Zen story about a monk who asked his master, "How can I hear the voice of truth?" The master replied, "When you stop speaking, it will speak." The monk, puzzled, said, "But I am silent now." The master smiled and said, "Then listen to the silence itself." In that silence, intuition lives. It does not come from thought, but from the space between thoughts. You cannot force it to appear, but you can create the conditions for it to arise through stillness, humility, and openness. In the modern world, this inner voice is easily drowned out. People are constantly stimulated by news, technology, opinions, noise. The mind rarely rests long enough to hear the subtler frequencies of wisdom, yet the universe never stops transmitting. Even in chaos, it speaks. The problem is not the absence of guidance, but the absence of listening. Buddhism offers a simple solution: return to the breath. The breath is the bridge between body and mind, heaven and earth. When you follow the breath, you return to presence, and in presence, intuition becomes audible again. This intuitive guidance manifests in many ways. Sometimes it is a sudden knowing, a flash of clarity that arrives fully formed, without reasoning. Other times, it is a persistent feeling that something is right or wrong, even if you cannot explain why. It may appear in dreams, in meditation, or in the quiet moments just before sleep. It can even appear through the words of others, as if the universe borrows their voices to echo what your heart already knows. The key is trust. Trust is the soil in which intuition grows. Doubt and overthinking choke it. This does not mean abandoning logic. Rather, it means recognizing logic's limitations. The intellect can calculate probabilities, but cannot perceive destiny. It can analyze data, but cannot feel alignment. The mind operates in the realm of form. Intuition speaks from the realm of emptiness. And in Buddhism, emptiness is not void, but infinite potential, the womb of all existence. To trust intuition is to trust the boundless intelligence of the universe itself. There are moments when intuition saves your life. Many people have stories of sudden impulses, to slow down, to turn left instead of right, to make a phone call at the perfect time. that prevented disaster or brought unexpected blessings. From the Buddhist perspective, this is not coincidence but karma, expressing itself through awareness. When your consciousness is refined, you naturally sense the ripples of cause and effect before they manifest fully. You begin to move in harmony with the unseen. This is called prajna, wisdom beyond reasoning. But the voice of wisdom can only be heard through silence and honesty. If you lie to yourself, intuition becomes distorted. It cannot function in a mind clouded by denial or pretense. The practice of truthfulness, saka, purifies the channel. When you are honest about your feelings, your fears, your motives, the intuitive voice gains strength. When you suppress or rationalize, the signal weakens. This is why the Buddhist path emphasizes ethical conduct, not as moral rigidity, but as clarity. The clearer your heart, the clearer the guidance. Sometimes intuition leads you through darkness. It asks you to walk paths you do not understand, to release attachments before replacements appear. This is perhaps the greatest test, to follow without seeing the destination. The Buddha himself left the palace without knowing where enlightenment would be found. His only guide was an inner conviction that truth existed beyond comfort. That same conviction lives in you. When intuition calls you to step into uncertainty, it is inviting you to trust the same universal intelligence that carried the Buddha beneath the Bodhi tree. Following intuition is an act of surrender. It requires letting go of control and embracing faith. Not blind belief, but experiential trust built through awareness. The more you follow, the more you see the perfection of its timing. Even apparent mistakes reveal hidden wisdom. You realize that intuition does not guarantee ease, it guarantees growth. Every time you obey its call, something in you expands. Courage, compassion, authenticity. You move closer to alignment with your true nature. One of the most beautiful aspects of intuitive living is that it brings peace even amid chaos. When you act from intuition, you no longer second-guess yourself. You may not know where the path leads, but you trust that each step is guided. Doubt dissolves into serenity. You stop seeking validation because truth itself becomes your compass. The Buddha described this state as right view, seeing reality as it is, without distortion. Intuition is the living expression of right view, a moment-to-moment awareness of harmony between inner and outer worlds. Over time, intuition evolves from occasional guidance into a continuous presence. It becomes less a whisper and more a state of being. Decisions arise effortlessly. Synchronicities increase. Obstacles seem to dissolve before they manifest. This is not magic, but mastery of awareness. When the mind is fully synchronized with the flow of life, there is no longer a difference between your will and the will of the universe. You and existence move as one. Yet even as this union deepens, humility remains essential. The intuitive voice does not belong to you, it belongs to the whole. To claim it as personal power is to fall back into illusion. The great masters always warn of spiritual pride, the belief that one's intuition makes one special or superior. True wisdom breeds compassion, not arrogance. When you realize that the same consciousness guiding you also guides every being, you naturally become gentle. You see that everyone is doing their best with the awareness they have. You forgive more easily, speak more kindly, and love more freely. Another layer of intuition reveals itself through compassion itself. When you act with genuine kindness, you align instantly with the universe's intelligence. Compassion is the highest form of intuition because it bypasses thought and responds directly to suffering. The Dalai Lama once said that compassion is not a philosophy, but a natural response of the awakened heart. When you live compassionately, every act becomes guided. You do not need to calculate morality. The right action arises spontaneously. This is why in Buddhism, the awakened mind is called bodhicitta, the mind of enlightenment motivated by love. The relationship between intuition and karma is delicate and profound. When your karma is heavy, clouded by fear, greed, or ignorance, intuition becomes muffled. You cannot hear the universe clearly because your own projections distort the message. Through mindfulness and ethical living, the karmic fog clears. The intuitive channel strengthens. You begin to feel guided not just occasionally, but constantly, as if invisible hands are shaping your path. This state is sometimes described as walking with the Dharma wind. You still make choices, but your choices flow effortlessly with the current of existence. There are times when intuition seems to disappear. You feel lost, disconnected, uncertain. In such moments, the lesson is to trust the silence itself. The universe sometimes withdraws clear signals so that you learn to rely on faith rather than confirmation. This is the spiritual equivalent of a teacher remaining silent during a test, not out of neglect, but to see how deeply you have integrated the lesson. Silence does not mean abandonment. It means the next level of mastery is being invited. If you want to strengthen your connection to this inner voice, live simply. Complexity feeds confusion. Simplicity nourishes awareness. The Buddha taught the Noble Eightfold Path not as a doctrine, but as a guide to simplicity. Right speech, right action, right livelihood. Each of these purifies the mind, reducing noise. When you live in harmony with truth, intuition flows effortlessly because there is nothing left to block it. Nature is one of the greatest teachers of intuitive living. Watch a river. It never forces its way, but always finds its path. Observe a tree. It bends with the wind, but never forgets its roots. The same intelligence that moves rivers and grows trees moves through you. The difference is that humans have forgotten to listen. Meditation is the art of remembering that rhythm. The more you attune to natural cycles, sunrise and sunset, breath and heartbeat, silence and sound, the more intuitive guidance becomes second nature. Ultimately, the voice of intuition and the voice of the universe are one and the same. They both speak the language of truth, love, and impermanence. When you act from that space, life unfolds with grace. You no longer need to chase signs because you have become the sign. Your very presence radiates alignment. The world responds accordingly, not because you manipulate it, but because you harmonize with it. In the final analysis, the universe does not guide you through commands, but through resonance. It vibrates through your intuition, urging you toward awareness. The heart that listens becomes the vessel of divine intelligence. Every nudge, every whisper, every inexplicable knowing is the universe reminding you of what you truly are. Not a separate being adrift in chaos, but consciousness itself learning to recognize its reflection. So the next time you feel that subtle pull in your chest, that quiet voice saying, "This way," honor it. Do not rush to rationalize or dismiss it. Pause, breathe, and trust. The universe speaks softly because truth does not compete for attention. It waits for stillness to be heard. When you finally listen, you realize it was never far away. It was your own higher awareness guiding you all along. If this message resonates with your journey, take a moment to subscribe to the channel so that these teachings and reflections continue to guide you toward the still, luminous voice of your own awakening. Acceptance and flow. When the universe moves through you, there comes a moment on the spiritual path when resistance dissolves, when the endless struggle to control, define, and grasp finally gives way to something deeper, quieter, and far more powerful: acceptance. Acceptance is not resignation, not the passive surrender of a defeated will, but the full embrace of reality as it is. It is the recognition that the universe has always known what it is doing, and that your efforts to resist its rhythm have been the very source of your suffering. In the Buddhist understanding, acceptance is the ultimate harmony between the self and existence. It is when the individual stops fighting the current of life and begins to flow with it. This is the highest sign that the universe is guiding you, not because events become easy, but because your heart stops dividing the world into good and bad, wanted and unwanted. You begin to see everything as a manifestation of the Dharma, a sacred unfolding of cause and effect that leads, without exception, toward awakening. The Buddha taught that all suffering arises from tanha, craving, the desire for reality to be different from what it is. Craving comes in two forms, wanting what is not present and rejecting what is. Both are forms of resistance. The mind that clings or rejects cannot see clearly. It is always occupied with arguing against what already exists. Acceptance, then, is the end of that argument. It is the deep exhale after a lifetime of holding your breath. When you accept, you align yourself with the nature of impermanence. You acknowledge that life is movement, that nothing stays fixed long enough to be controlled. And in that acknowledgement, peace arises, not because circumstances change, but because your relationship to them does. Many misunderstand acceptance as passivity, as if to accept were to stop caring. But true acceptance is profoundly active. It is the act of opening completely to the present moment, of engaging reality without distortion. When you accept a situation, you see it as it is, and only then can wise action emerge. Without acceptance, your actions are reactions, blind, defensive, rooted in fear. With acceptance, action flows naturally from understanding. This is why acceptance is the mother of compassion. When you no longer resist life, you can respond to it with love. To accept is to trust the intelligence of the universe. Buddhism teaches that everything arises through dependent origination. No event exists in isolation. The situation you are in, the people around you, even your thoughts and emotions, are the result of countless interconnected causes. To resist any part of that web is to resist the entire cosmos, but to accept is to participate consciously in that web. You become a willing part of the great unfolding. You cease to see yourself as a separate entity battling against fate, and begin to feel yourself as a wave within the ocean of being. The wave does not fear the current. It moves with it, knowing that its essence is water. Likewise, when you live in flow, you recognize that your essence is awareness itself. Never separate, never in danger, simply moving from one form to another. Flow arises naturally from acceptance. It is the effortless state where intention and circumstance merge, where action feels spontaneous yet deeply aligned. In the state of flow, you are not pushing life, you are moved by it. The Taoists call this wu-wei, effortless action, which resonates perfectly with the Buddhist understanding of non-self, anatta. When you are not clinging to a fixed identity, you act without friction. The energy of the universe moves through you, and your life becomes a dance of synchronicity, meaning, and grace. This flow is not limited to meditation or art. It can permeate every aspect of daily existence. Washing dishes, speaking with a friend, walking through a crowded street, each can become an expression of flow when performed without resistance. The key is presence. Presence transforms doing into being. The more present you are, the more you feel life flowing through you rather than from you. You begin to sense that every gesture, every breath, every encounter is perfectly placed in the tapestry of existence. There is no longer a need to manipulate outcomes because you trust that the right results arise naturally from right action. Acceptance also transforms your relationship with time. The ordinary mind lives trapped between past and future, oscillating between regret and anticipation. Acceptance brings you into the eternal now, the only moment that truly exists. The Buddha said, "Do not dwell in the past. Do not dream of the future. Concentrate the mind on the present moment." When you accept the present, you liberate yourself from the illusion of control. You stop trying to rewrite the past or predict the future, and instead participate fully in what is happening now. In that participation, destiny unfolds by itself. You realize that the universe was never waiting for your perfection. It was waiting for your presence. Many of life's most painful lessons are designed to teach acceptance. Loss, illness, disappointment. These are the teachers that break the illusion of control. At first, resistance intensifies. The mind screams, "Why is this happening? This shouldn't be." But beneath that storm, a deeper awareness waits. The moment you stop arguing with what is, suffering begins to ease. The situation may remain difficult, but it no longer defines your peace. Acceptance allows you to experience pain without adding the burden of resistance. It separates suffering from struggle. There is a story in the Buddhist tradition about two arrows. The first arrow is pain, the inevitable challenges of human life. The second arrow is the suffering we create by resisting that pain. Acceptance removes the second arrow. It allows you to experience pain as part of the natural flow without layering it with anger, fear, or denial. When you accept, you no longer multiply your wounds. Instead, you meet them with awareness. That awareness becomes healing. Flow deepens this process even further. When you are in flow, even challenges become harmonious. You start to see obstacles not as interruptions, but as redirections. The universe does not block you, it steers you. A closed door is not rejection but guidance. Flow teaches you to move like water, flexible, adaptable, unstoppable. Water does not fight rocks. It shapes them over time. In the same way, when you flow with life, you transform resistance into wisdom. You become soft but unbreakable, humble but powerful. To live in acceptance is to live in harmony with karma. You no longer fear consequences because you act from awareness rather than ignorance. Each moment becomes an offering to the universe, each thought a ripple in the infinite sea of cause and effect. You begin to see that destiny is not imposed upon you, it is co-created through your participation. When you resist, you create turbulence. When you accept, you create harmony. The Buddha compared this harmony to the clear reflection of the moon on a still pond. When the water of the mind is agitated by desire or fear, the moon's image is distorted. When the water is calm, the reflection is perfect. Acceptance calms the water. Flow allows the moonlight to shine through. This state of alignment brings profound joy, not the fleeting happiness of pleasure, but the deep joy of unity. You no longer seek fulfillment from external conditions. You feel fulfilled simply by being. The heart opens naturally, compassion expands, and gratitude becomes your default state. You thank the universe not only for blessings, but for lessons, not only for gain, but for loss. Gratitude, in turn, deepens acceptance. It is the recognition that every experience, pleasant or painful, contributes to your awakening. In practical terms, living in acceptance means greeting each moment with curiosity instead of judgment. It means replacing "why is this happening to me?" with "what is this teaching me?" It means trusting that even when you cannot see the pattern exists. The Buddha called this faith in the law of karma and the law of dharma. The faith that the universe is intelligent, compassionate, and just. You begin to notice that when you stop interfering, life takes care of itself. The right people arrive, the right opportunities unfold, and the right timing reveals itself. Acceptance also dissolves fear. Fear thrives on resistance, the belief that something unwanted could happen and must be prevented. When you accept everything as part of your growth, fear loses its foundation. You no longer live defensively, guarding against change, because you see that change itself is the essence of life. The mind relaxes, the body softens, and energy begins to move freely again. This is not psychological trickery, but physiological truth. When resistance drops, tension dissolves. The body mirrors the mind's acceptance, and healing occurs naturally. Flow is the embodied form of this acceptance. It is how acceptance moves through the world. When you act from flow, there is no separation between you and the action. You are not doing, you are being done by the universe. The Zen masters call this mushin, no mind, the state of effortless mastery. An artist painting, a monk sweeping, a mother comforting her child, all can embody this flow. The hands move, the heart guides, and there is no thought of success or failure. The action becomes meditation. At this stage, even destiny changes meaning. What once felt like fate now feels like co-creation. You realize that destiny is not a fixed script, but a living dance between your consciousness and the universe. The more you accept, the more the dance becomes graceful. The more you resist, the more it becomes chaotic. The universe is a perfect partner. It adjusts to your every movement. When you stumble, it slows down. When you flow, it accelerates. Its purpose is not to control you, but to awaken you. Acceptance, then, is the highest form of guidance. It means you no longer need signs, omens, or explanations. You trust life itself. You see that everything happening is guidance, every silence, every delay, every encounter. You no longer separate the sacred from the ordinary because you realize they were never two. Washing a dish, breathing, listening to a friend's laughter, all are expressions of the same divine intelligence. The extraordinary hides in the ordinary, waiting to be noticed. In Buddhism, this state is called suchness or tathata, seeing things exactly as they are. When you live in suchness, acceptance becomes your natural state. You stop dividing reality into should and should not. You stop chasing enlightenment as a distant goal because you realize enlightenment is the very act of seeing clearly, right here, right now. The universe no longer appears as something outside guiding you. You realize you are the universe guiding itself. One of the most liberating truths the Buddha taught is that life is inherently trustworthy. Impermanent, yes. Uncertain, yes, but not hostile. The mind that fears life projects hostility where there is only change. The mind that accepts life sees beauty even in decay, purpose even in endings. A flower blooming and a flower wilting are equally expressions of the same cycle. So are birth and death, joy and sorrow, gain and loss. When you accept both poles, you step into balance, the middle way. The practice of acceptance does not mean you stop aspiring for goodness or justice. It means you act without attachment to results. You do what is right because it is right, not because it guarantees success. You serve because compassion compels you, not because you expect reward. This detachment gives your actions tremendous power. When there is no egoic agenda, the universe works freely through you. Miracles, synchronicities, and peace follow naturally, not as goals, but as byproducts of harmony. Sometimes acceptance reveals its deepest power in the midst of suffering. When tragedy strikes, the death of a loved one, the loss of a dream, acceptance does not erase grief, but it sanctifies it. You feel the pain fully without collapsing into despair. You cry, but the crying becomes prayer. You mourn, but the mourning becomes love. This is not numbness, it is awakening. You see that even sorrow can be holy when met with awareness. When you live in flow, this awareness becomes constant. You stop seeking meaning in specific events because meaning pervades everything. You become like a river, sometimes rushing, sometimes still, always connected to the ocean. There is no longer a sense of isolation. The boundaries between self and universe blur until they disappear entirely. What remains is peace. not the peace of escape, but the peace of participation. Acceptance also brings forgiveness of others, of yourself, of life. You forgive not because it is morally required, but because you see the futility of holding on. You realize that every being acts according to their level of awareness, and that ignorance is the root of all harm. Compassion replaces judgment. The heart expands until it includes even those who once caused pain. This is the compassion of the Bodhisattva, the vow to see all beings as part of one unfolding consciousness. In the end, acceptance and flow reveal the deepest truth of Buddhist destiny. There is no destiny apart from awareness. The universe is not an external force pushing you toward a predetermined end. It is the mirror of your own consciousness, reflecting what you need to awaken. When you resist, the reflection appears distorted. When you accept, the mirror becomes clear. You see yourself as you truly are, not a separate being struggling to survive, but the timeless awareness through which all experience arises. At this level of realization, even the idea of guidance dissolves. There is no longer a guide and a guided, no longer signs to interpret or paths to follow. There is only the seamless movement of existence, breathing, expanding, evolving through you. This is what the Buddha meant when he said, "There is no path to happiness. Happiness is the path." Guidance, destiny, and purpose merge into one continuous act of being. The ultimate acceptance is the acceptance of impermanence itself. To live without clinging even to peace, to allow every experience to arise and pass without ownership, that is enlightenment. You flow not because you have mastered life, but because you have become life. The river does not fear the sea. It knows the sea is its home. So too, the awakened one does not fear change or death, for they know they are the eternal consciousness witnessing it all. Acceptance and flow, then, are not the end of the journey, but the revelation that there was never a journey to begin with, only the infinite unfolding of awareness knowing itself through form. When you reach this realization, every breath becomes sacred, every step a prayer. You no longer chase signs from the universe because you have become the sign, the living embodiment of harmony between heaven and earth. So let your life move like water. Let it rise and fall, twist and turn without resistance. Trust that the current carries you exactly where you need to be. Do not fight the tide. Become the tide. In that surrender lies the highest freedom. The universe is not leading you somewhere else. It is leading you back to yourself. If these words have touched something within you, take a moment to subscribe to the channel, so that this journey of awareness, peace, and inner freedom may continue to unfold within you, one breath at a time.